it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition for tonight headlines. We have the head of state took part in the Peace and Security Council summit by video conference. For the international scene, the Supreme Court overturned former President Lula's convictions. Welcome to our newsroom. The President of the Republic takes part in a summit of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, on Tuesday took part in the proceeding of a virtual summit of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. The meeting was devoted to the recording of new challenges to peace and security in Africa. The summit also sought to reach a common and official positions of the continent on the issue of Western Sahara, praised since last November to a return of tension between the protagonists on this issue, namely the Moroccan government and the Polisario Front. With regard to the first theme, the debate essentially highlighted the difficulties encountered on the ground in order to achieve the objective defined by the Pan-African organizations and relating to the silencing the weapons program. In addition to the President of the Republic, this virtual summit brought together all the head of state and government of the 15 member countries of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and the diplomatic advisor to the head of state, Fathi Jamauddin, assisted the President of the Republic in his participation in the work of this meeting. For his part, the head of state has indicated in his speech that despite the progress made in the pacification and stabilization of the continent, the challenges facing Africa remain significant. It is with this in mind that our Assembly has committed itself to the Silencing the Guns initiative. Listen to the head of state.
Monsieur le Président, en dépit des progrès réalisés dans la pacification.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, Mr. Chairman of the African Union Commission, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to congratulate my brother, the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, on assuming the presidency of our Peace and Security Council for the month of March 2021. I would also like to take this opportunity to express my sincerest congratulations to the chairperson of the Commission of the African Union on his re-election at the head of our organization. I would also like to congratulate Ambassador Bankwala Deu for his brilliant election as AU Commissioner for Political Affairs and Peace and Security. Finally, I cannot end my greetings without thanking our brother, Mr. Ismail Chirigui, for the tremendous work he has done in the service of our union over the past 8 years. Mr. President, despite the progress made in pacifying and establishing this continent, the challenges facing Africa remain significant. It is with this in mind that our Assembly has committed itself to the initiative to silence the guns. Indeed, a multitude of threats, whether new or traditional, whether terrorism or other forms of cross-border crime, including trafficking in arms and human beings, now transcend our borders and undermine our progress. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic, as an invincible enemy that has impacted the entire world, has undoubtedly affected our efforts to silence weapons in the long term. Given the urgency and magnitude of this crisis, our union has indeed been obliged to relocate the resources previously mobilized for a conflict-free Africa to the fight against the pandemic. Similarly, a number of planned activities have, unfortunately, had to be either postponed or cancelled. Mr. President, the consequences of climate change threaten the food security of populations, increase poverty, and lead to population displacements, thus bringing their share of inter-community conflicts at the borders. So how can we give substance to the vision of a prosperous continent free from the scourges of war and poverty? Through cooperation, solidarity, resilience, consultation, and provision.
Through cooperation, solidarity, resilience, consultations, and prevention. Listen once again to the head of state.
Face à ces défis qui fragilisent encore
Faced with these challenges, which further weaken our economic and social development strategies, our union, Mr. President, has already put in place an appropriate mechanism. In fact, since the early beginnings of our organization, we have created a conflict management center that has been continuously reformed to meet the needs of our continent up to its current format, which is the APSA, African Peace and Security Architecture. For example, in the 1990s, the IGAD region was experiencing about inter-community conflicts, a proliferation of small arms, many pastoral conflicts across borders. It is in this spirit that we set up the C1 mechanism in 22, which brought together the countries of the region and whose main mission was to assess situations that could potentially lead to conflicts and thus prevent escalation, because these disputes today are experienced in automatic weapons. Mr. Speaker, the situation in the Horn of Africa and the Sahelo-Saharan region is of great concern to us. We must ensure that our states are strong and resilient. Therefore, this meeting must propose a clear and comprehensive roadmap to meet the challenge of multidimensional instability with a comprehensive strategy of our continent, including in particular an adjustment of the operationalization of the African Standby Force to the trans-regional security challenge. Western Sahara, ladies and gentlemen, also remains marked by high tensions. The breakdown of the ceasefire after 2 decades is regrettable in an already unstable region. Faithful to its traditional policy, the Republic of Djibouti calls on the actors concerned to prioritize dialogue in accordance with international law, including the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. At our level, it is essential that we remain in line with Decision 693 of our conference, adopted in Nouakchott in 2018, which laid the foundations for a constructive consensus within our organization, including support for the efforts of the United Nations and the creation of Turkey of the Union. Moreover, if we want Africa's voice to count in the resolution of this issue, it is imperative that we prioritize conscience with our organization and avoid the division observed in the past. Finally, the Republic of Djibouti adds its voice to the calls for the appointment of a UN special envoy on this issue.
The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Muhammad Ali Hamad, received this morning in his office the Mediator of the Republic, who visited him for a presentation of the annual report 2020. During this meeting, the mediator gave an assessment of the past year marked by a drop in the number of requests from the complainants. He has already emphasized his intervention is based on the principle of fairness and in dispute concerning the allocations by default of profit sharings and employees' participations, an issue on which he has made the greatest numbers of recommendations in 2020. In the difficult context of the health crisis linked to the COVID-19 epidemic, the mediator of the Republic and his team mobilized to ensure the continuity of their missions for a distance. The first mission is, of course, to teach, to educate, to prepare the future of young people. Teachers are also involved in all issues of civil society. Yesterday, the teachers mobilized to affirm their choice to support the President of the Republic during the next presidential election. A choice that might make us to the concrete actions of the President of the Republic from his accession to the Supreme Magistracy to improve education at all levels and enhance the value of Djiboutian teacher. A support evening was organized on the evening of Monday, 8 March 2021 at Sheraton Hotel by the EOG's Teacher Support Committee. Distinguished guests took part in the evening, including the campaign directors of the President of the Republic, Ahmed Ali Barre, and his team, surrounded by the Minister of National Education, Vocational Training, Mustafa Mohamed Mahmoud, and his government's colleague. This evening was an opportunity for the teachers to express their satisfactions with the choice of the two teachers at the head of its campaign directions, EOG 2021.
noqona midigiyo bidic muraadsan milkaha guurkiyo nolol maqaamsan meel ka gaadho makaan bilicsan meel ka gaadho makaan bilicsan maktabiyo xigaal gacan lagu macsuumo mahad allaale laga maqsuudo.
The teachers spoke at the event to reaffirm their recognition and extreme pride in the policy of the President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, who has restored the image of the teaching professions. They pledged to renew their confidence and give 100% unfailing support to their candidate in the next elections in April 2021. The director of the 2021 election campaign, Ahmed Ali Barre, said in his speech that these important numbers of teachers, even if it is a representative sample of all teachers in the countries, reflect a symbolic image and a first action in our countries that will be marked in the history of the country. The Minister of Health, Mohammed Warsama Diriye, chaired an important meeting on preparations for COVID-19 vaccinations held in the Ministry's conference room. This meeting was attended by the Secretary General of the Health, Dr. Saleh Benoita Turab, with the remarkable participation of the member of the commissioners in charge of introduction vaccines and the main executive and director of the health departments. Discussions revolved around the modalities of vaccine deployment as well as the planning of the COVID immunizations campaign. In his statement, the Health Minister Mohammed Warsama Diriye announced the new vaccine strategy directions on the national response to the pandemic from COVID-19. The Minister of Health recalled the national epidemiological context, which remains stabilized and favorable to the introductions and generalization of vaccination targeting vulnerable populations such as healthcare staff, the elderly, and those with the chronic disease. The Financial Application Center, in collaboration with the General Tax Directorate, organized this morning at the People's Palace a ceremony for the presentation of a certificate in taxation to chartered accountant, co-chaired by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Budget, Mr. Simon Mebratu, and the Director of CAF Center, Mr. Abdurazak Khaire Burale. Were present the coordinators of the trainings of chartered accountant, Mr. Mahad Mohammed Hassan, and the teaching staff. The Financial Application Center, created 2 years ago, has the mission of providing trainings to staff of all categories of the budget ministries. The aim of this training is to acquire the rudiments of tax techniques and procedures of knowledge of this system, and will enable chartered accountants to provide the quality services to companies in the countries. The director of the Center of CAF, Mr. Abdurazak Khaire Burale, recalled in his speech that the CAF created 2 years ago has the mission to provide training to staff of all categories of the budget ministry. For his part, Simon Mebratu, Secretary General of the Ministry of Budget, stressed that the Ministry of Budget will continue through the Tax Directorate to force small enterprises to use chartered accountant in the fulfillment of their tax obligations. A strong delegation led by the prefect of the region of Ali Sabih Musa Adel Migane, composed of the Secretary General of the Ministry of Social Affairs Solidarity, Ifrah Ali Ahmed, the Director of Multilateral Relations at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Musa Aden Migane, and the Director of Multilateral Relations, Mr. Gelle Idris Omar, the Director General of the Population, Mr. Ahmed Omar Jama, the representative of the Secretary of State for Decentralization, several members of the Association Women Foundation of the Djiboutian Diaspora, the Djiboutian armies of the sub-prefectures of Hol represented by its Colonel Muhammad Jama Qayad. This multi-sectoral delegation was welcomed in the Biidle by the local authorities and the local population. Also present at the event were representatives of the regional director of the agriculture and the food agriculture organization. In fact, it is within the framework of community resilience and development that this multi-sectoral displacement takes place, thus enhancing the consolidations of human capital in rural areas. The delegation was able to talk with the local community, thanking them for their warm welcome. They were able to discuss with the populations of this village on various subjects concerning their basic social needs and expectations, but also socio-economic development, as well as the sustainability of the actions carried out by the government in the regions. They were also able to listen their complaints about the activities and programs that have been carried out in the region. General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim paid an announced inspections visit to Hol on board of Dolphin helicopters designed to transport VIP staff. Indeed, in the context of the Djiboutian Armed Forces rise in the power and the policy of rejuvenating its cadre, the Djiboutian Army carried out a targeted recruitment of young men and women from the civilian populations at the beginning of 2021. Following the submissions of application, a joint commission was set up by the military command to select the best profile. The population responded massively to the call, thus it was necessary to introduce young people to the hand job of soldiers, which requires courage, self-sacrifices, rigor, discipline, and self-surpassing. This apprenticeship involves the teaching and discipline specific on the army. It is in this context that the President Guled Military School in Hol, the breeding ground for the training of every soldier, welcomed 175 newly recruited female staff. This inspection visit followed the visit made by the Siamga on Thursdays at Mariama, where their male brothers in arms are installed, responding to the instructions of the President of the Republic wishing to commit himself to the Djiboutian youth. The personnel retained were distributed to the site of Mariama for male personnel and Hol for female staff. It is within this framework that this inspection visit by the Chief of the General Armed Forces is taking place. Colonel Muhammad Jama Qayad, commander of the President Guled Military School in Hol, gave a brief presentation to the Chief of Staff of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, who gave an account of the progress of the installations and the training provided at Hol. It should be noted that these young recruits have been installed at Hol for 1 month. This training, known as basic all-weapon training, is the basic military training essential for any young soldier. It enables the trainings of young, disciplined citizen soldiers who are ready for operational mission. At the end of their trainings, at the end of the presentation, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, accompanied by the delegation, visited the various training sites and was able to see the excellent work accomplished by the staff and the military school during the only 1 month they have been at Hol. The Chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, made a point of addressing the young recruits to thank them for having made the choice to serve their countries in uniform, choosing to defend one's countries against any enemy. It was from within and without. It is a daily challenge that requires courage, bravery, self-sacrifices and sacrifices, but above all, it is a noble and respected profession. The gendarmes of the Obok Brigade were alerted about unidentified individuals who were burying Ethiopian migrants on the beach of Raspir. Indeed, in the evening of 2 March 2021, more than 180 migrants boarded at Dow bound for Yemen on the same beach. At the times of boarding, given the weight of the boat, the smugglers had forced some migrants to push it to take this open sea when a large wave carried away 5 migrants who drowned in an attempt to conceal the bodies and possible evidence. The smugglers, accompanied by the others 3 individuals, proceeded to bury the bodies on the beach. With this in mind, the gendarmes arrested these 5 individuals in flagrant delicto. A closing ceremony of the boarding training provided by the Japanese Coast Guard for the Djiboutian Coast Guard Rapid Intervention Group was held under the patronage of Colonel Wais Omar Bore, commander of the Coast Guard, at the training center at Camp Dorale in the mornings of Thursday, 4 March 2021. The training on inspections on board the ships and arrest techniques was held this year by video conference due to COVID-19 pandemic, which is still active in the world, and this colorful ceremony was attended by the resident representative of JICA, Djibouti, Mr. Togawa Tosu, and Mr. Higoshi Noshikawa, JICA's Director of International Cooperation at Japanese Coast Guard. This training, which is of significant importance, enabled 20 members of the Coast Guard Rapid Response Group to deepen their knowledge of techniques for the arrest of the criminal in the maritime domain and on-board inspection procedure. For his part, the Colonel of the Djiboutian Coast Guard, Wais Omar Bogore, indicate that this training fits in perfectly with our training project for our staff to fight against the forms of illegal activities in the maritime domain. With more sadness, we learned of the deaths of our dear colleague Mohammed Hassan Hirab last night in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, where he was being treated in a hospital. The deceased, who was born in 1981, was educated in the Arab Republic of Egypt, where he graduated from Al-Azhar Al-Sharif University. Upon his return to the countries, he joined RTD in 2011 as an Arab newspaper presenter and then as a journalist in the sports section. He left behind a widow and 3 children. RTD management and the staff offer their sincere condolence to the family, friends, and relatives of the deceased. May the Almighty welcome him to his eternal paradise. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. For the international scene, a Brazilian Supreme Court judges on Monday overturned the criminal convictions of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The former left-wing president has had his political rights restored with 1 year to go before the next presidential election. Judge Edson Fashion made the decision, which was like a bomb in Brazil, arguing to the Curitiba court that had convicted Lula in 4 trials was not competent to try the cases. They will now be tried by a federal court in Brasilia. Pending its decision, the former leftist president of 25 to 2010 is restored to his political rights. Lula Innocent said the Twitter account of the Worker Parties, a group founded by Lula in 1980. Lula, 75 years, had already served as a year and a half in prison for corruption from April 2018 to November 2019 before being released by a collegial decision of Supreme Court but banned from election. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.